So we were discussing the subprograms. So and yesterday we have discussed the uh, overloaded subprograms, right? In C++, this we call it as function overloading. By changing the number of parameters, order or type of the parameters, you can have multiple functions with the same name, right? Having the different definitions to provide the different implementations, right? So, and similarly, of course, there are other languages like Ada also will provide the function overloading or operators overloaded subprograms, right? So you can see in languages like in some programming languages, the method signature or function prototype, which we call it as in C++ or Java. In Java, we call it as method signature, or in C++, we call it as function prototype, which includes majorly the function name and the parameter list in number, order, and type. Unlike this, that there are some programming language probably consider the subprogram parameter profile, uh, uh, you know, including the return type that we call it as a protocol sometimes, right? So there are certain programming languages who make use of this protocol kind of concept, wherein the entire parameter profile of the subprogram will be taken into consideration. It means even the return type. So the return type also can be used or can be used to perform the operate what do you call overloaded subprograms. You mean you can have multiple subprograms by changing the return type of the subprogram as well. Okay. Now we'll probably look at some of the design issues of the subprogram, which we have of course discussed before as well. Just wanted to take a glance of the same. What parameter passing methods are provided, right? This we have discussed in the previous classes. We have in method, out method, in out method, right? Are parameter types checked? The parameters are they going to be checked at the compilation time? The language designer is going to have some kind of mechanism which is built inside the compiler to check yes, there are a good number of languages like C++, or Ada and all, where you can find this kind of type checking is available. Are local variables static or dynamic? Local in the sense the local to the subprograms, or they can be dynamic. Yes, there are certain languages who gives dynamic variables also. Can subprograms definitions appear in other subprogram definitions? But these are the issues which are being addressed by different programming languages in different perspectives, and they have sometimes provided it as a feature, is an added advantage, by addressing the same in their respective programming language, programming constructs. Can subprograms be overloaded? As we have seen, it can be. And can subprograms be generic? Like, of course, generic in the sense with the help of templates, you can have, generic subprograms available in C++. Similarly, in Ada also, you can have generic subprograms. Without having the data type specified for the variables that you use in the subprograms, later at the time of implementation, you can give any data type for the same and then implement it for different data types by generating the different versions of the same. right? That you must have seen in C++ with the help of template, of course, right? That example also you can see. Local referencing environments. Local variables can be static dynamic, the different type of scope we have discussed before. Dynamic scope or static dynamic, and heap dynamic, right? So these all anyway we have seen before. See again in when come to the subprograms, the local referencing environment, when the variables which are local to the subprogram, are they be stack dynamic or heap dynamic? Are they bound to storage? Having that as a stack dynamic will help you for recursion, of course, right? Recursion is being implemented in many of the programming languages, right? Storage for class is shared among subprograms. In subprograms, the locals can be as well shared with other subprograms. There is a possibility with the help of referencing variables in C++. We have reference variables that we have seen in C++, right? The disadvantages: allocation or deallocation, and initialization time. Indirect addressing subprograms cannot be history sensitive, right? Since they can be accessed, if you have reference variables can be shared with other subprograms, indirectly they are accessing the variables which are local to the other subprogram. There is a possibility of misuse rather, right? So, and another thing is of course in C we have pointer kind of concept with the help of which you can probably share the local variables of subprograms with other one. The disadvantages, you have to allocate the memory for the variables during the runtime. So initialization time will be an added overhead over there, right? Local variables can be static. If local variables can be static, they are more efficient. There is no indirection, no runtime overhead, and they cannot support recursion. So these are some of the disadvantages with local variables when they are static. But when program language designer is trying to adopt this local referencing environment, he can rather go with stack dynamic or local variables to be static, right? If the variables, the local variables are static, then the main disadvantage that you get out of it is you are not able to provide the recursion, right? So since it does not support the recursion, so recursion, what is one of the important feature programming construct as seen rather, right? Which is quite helpful for many of the complex programs like sorting programs, searching programs. You have data structure programs like stacks, probably you have graphs, graph traversals, tree traversals, and you have string pattern matching. You have a lot of complex algorithm when you look at where probably recursion is quite helpful. Fine, and like for example, binary search tree concept we probably look at, right? The same if you implement it with recursion, it takes less amount of code and less overhead, less from the user's point of view, it is very less. Whereas if you do the same thing without recursion, iterative manner, then probably it takes more number of steps. The code will be increased, and the extra overhead lines of code is increased. When lines of code is increased, obviously the cost is increased, fine, and the overhead also going to get increased, right, on the RAM, fine. So it depends on the language designer which particular environment he will go with. But most of the programming language you can see they go with this stack dynamic, right? Parameter passing methods we have seen. Parameter passing method we have seen pass by value, pass by result, pass by value result, pass by reference, and pass by name. But the same, if you can, when see with respect to different programming languages, they are called in different terminology. Pass by value is called as call by value in C, C++. Pass by result, is that the result is going to be copied in the, what do you call, calling function, right? So you don't have this kind, of course, in C, but this is possible in C++ with the help of referencing. Pass by value result, that is, passing and then getting both rather, right? So this is also possible with the help of references in C++. And you have pass by reference. This is completely using reference or by using pointers. This can be implemented in Java, in C++ with the help of pointers or reference variables, or in C it is the help of pointers. And pass by name. Pass by name is also there, which probably you can see in Ada and other kind of languages, right? So anyway, we have seen how the parameter passing mechanism works. There is a caller, there is a callee, right? For example, you have a subprogram which you have three variables you pass, right? A, B, C. So this is a procedure where you have X, Y, Z are the formal variables, and these are the actual variables, right? And in mode, in the sense, you will pass the data to the callee, right? And when callee is returning, it is said to be out mode. When you have vice versa, it is said to be in out mode, right? So models, when you ask, the models of parameter passing are in mode, out mode, and in out mode. But if it is asked methods, then probably these are the methods, right? So fine. So anyway, I have discussed all this. I don't think it is required again. I'll just refer my previous videos for this. Pass by name is done by textual substitution. This one also I've explained you with an example. This is exactly, you don't have pass by name kind, but a simulation of this you can find in C or C++ with the help of macro functions, right? That you can probably see in my previous videos. Implementing parameter passing methods with respect to different programming languages also we have discussed before. Like in Fortran, we have always used the in-out mode semantic model. Before Fortran 77, it was passed by reference. Fortran 77 and later, scalar variables are often passed by value result. In C, you can find pass by value and pass by reference. This is achieved using pointers, right? And in C++, you have a special pointer type called reference. So you can fill the pass by reference, like pass by reference only. Fine. In Java, all parameters are passed by value itself, right? Object parameters are passed by objects are going to be passed as a reference, but whereas the variables and other kind of stuff will be passed as value. In Ada, three semantic models, modes of parameter transmission is available: in, out, and in mode, out mode, and in out mode, right? Formal parameters declared out can be assigned but not referenced. Those declared in can be referenced but not assigned. In out parameters can be referenced and assigned. You can assign and reference, right? Basically, when you have out mode, out mode can be assigned and cannot be referenced. But of course, in other programming languages, it is possible with the help of references, right? It can be referenced also, like in C++. Yeah. C hash default method we have is the pass by value. Pass by reference is specified by preceding both the formal parameter and its actual parameter with ref. Ref is the keyword as part of C hash. And the PHP, if you see, it is very similar to C hash. All practical static reporting now, all actual parameters are implicitly placed in a predefined array name. Type checking parameters. Parameters, whether they are going to be checked or not, which we have discussed, is an issue that has been taken care of, addressed by different programming languages. If you can see, Photon 77 and original, they don't have type checking for the parameters. Uh, and of course, if you have type checking, then your program is more reliable. I mean, the type which you have for the formal, the same kind of value, rather you need to pass for actual, right? If you do not have the type checking at all, then probably you can send the different value as well without having concern about the type of the formal parameters. Okay, but that will be taken care with coercion. In C, you have coercion type conversion, so that will take care of it. But in like Java and where you have strongly typed programming languages in which you don't find this type of coercion, so you have to explicitly do all that. And the languages where you have the type checking is available, like Java and Ada kind of thing, where probably you need to explicitly take care of all such kind of things, right? Like Pascal, Fortran 90, Java, and Ada, as I said, it is always required. Okay. ANSI, C and C++ choice is made by the user. When you mention the prototype, basically you define the prototype before you define the code. So where you can mention the type of the parameters so that the user will be notified with the type of value that he has to pass while he is going to call the function, right? That way you can probably rather help the user from having the non-type or uncompatible type values being passed at the time of call. These Perl, JavaScript, these are the web scripting languages, right? PHP, hypertext preprocessor that do not require type checking. And multi-dimensional is yeah, coming to overloaded subprogram that we have discussed in the last class is one that has the same name as another subprogram and the same referencing environment in the same class, in the same program, right? And when you have more than one subprogram the same name, right? Then we say it's overloaded subprogram. Every version of an overload subprogram has a unique protocol. Protocol in the sense the entire subprogram profile, including the return type, basically. But as I said, C++ doesn't consider the return type, only the name and the parameter list. But there are certain languages where the return type also being considered. C++, Java, C hash, and Ada include predefined overloaded subprograms. In Ada, the return type of an overloaded function can be used to disambiguate calls. Those two overloaded functions can have the same parameter. I mean, you can have the same parameters, but they can be deferred with the return type. So in Ada, by changing the return type, also you can have the overloaded subprogram, which is not possible in C++, right? Ada, Java, C++, C hash allows users to write multiple versions of the subprogram with the same name. Okay. Now coming to generic subprograms, generic subprogram in the sense where you do not specify the data type of the variable. The data type variables, data type of the variables is generic. It is not defined during the definition. Rather, at the time of implementation, you can pass any data type to that generic. If you pass integer, then an integer version of the same will be created and for which the implementation will take place. And if you pass character, then character version is going to be created and for the same the implementation will take place. If you pass float, a long, double, or structure, or some regard kind like student or any other kind, matrix or class kind or any other. So whatever is the data type that you pass during the time of calling the function or the class rather, right? Or to the respective generic parameters. The respective versions are going to be created for which the memory is going to be allocated, and the same is going to be implemented rather, right? Overloaded subprograms provide ad hoc polymorphism. A generic or polymorphic subprogram takes parameters of different types and different activation. That's what he has mentioned here, right? So when activation is the time you call that particular respective function or the call or the class, right? So the time when you call that subprogram, the type of parameter that you pass to the generic variables or generic parameters, a version of your respective type is going to be created, and the same is going to be implemented, right? A subprogram that takes generic parameter that is used in a type expression that describes the type of parameters of the subprogram that it provides. We'll take an example of C++. Since all of you are very familiar with C++, and you must have implemented it with the help of templates in C++. So template is a generic data type, right? Template, how do you define a template? Template is a keyword in C++. Template, you give within tags, you give class space the template data type, right? The generic data type that you mentioned here. So let's say, for example, TYPE type. You can say T or T1, T2, something like that. Okay. So now there is a small subprogram or a function you can see here. Find max. It's going to find the maximum of these two numbers that you're passing as its parameter. So all of them are of type kind, where type is not defined. Type is a template. It means generic. It can be of any kind. During the time of the activation of this particular subprogram, the type will be defined. Okay. So here only the operation is going to be specified in the generic function, generic subprogram function template, we call it as in C++. Where only the operation is going to be specified, but not the type of the variables on which the operation will take place, rather, right? So you can see these variables, first and second, you're not mentioning its type, they are generic, but then the logic is mentioned, the operation is mentioned. Let's say you are using a ternary operator, which is equivalent to if-else kind. First greater than second means if first is greater than second, then first will be returned, otherwise second will be returned. How does the ternary operator works? If-else kind. If this condition is true, after question mark will be executed. If this is false, then after colon will be executed, right? This is the if body, this is the else body, right? So now if you want to implement it for integer, you can see here at the bottom, the function is written int max of int first comma int second. Return first greater than second, question mark, first colon second, right? So you can see this is one version of this. I mean, if you take integer in place of type, you get this version. If you take character, you get another version. If you take float, you get another version. Let me take my epic pen. You can see this is the template type. Okay. So this is a variable. First is a variable. Second is another variable. Both of them are of type kind, and here this works like if else, right? If first is greater than second, it returns first, right? It is something like return first, else return second, right? The interpretation of this ternary operator is this, right? So since the value which is going to be returned from it is either first or second, both are for being type kind, so return type is type here, right? Fine. So now when you implement this, you call this, right, function in the, rather if it is a C++, so in the main function you're going to call this, right? So let us take some integer variable int x comma y, okay, and then you're calling this function. You may have given some value, let us say x equal to 10, y equal to 20. You can give some value, no issue. Let us take this. And now call this function. What is it? Max. So let us call that function. So see out, you said max of x comma y. Let us say I have called this function max. We're passing x comma y. Then what happens? This is a generic function which is defined. Since there was no data type mentioned for the variables, the memory for this function will not be created. It's just a abstract kind, complete entity, right? When you call this function by passing x comma y, where x comma y is integer, then what happens? A version of the integer, of this function is going to be generated by replacing type with int. What is here? You are passing x. What is the data type of int? Sorry, x. It is int. So type is going to be replaced with int. So by replacing type with int, a version of this is going to be generated. That is mentioned here, right? You can see here that is mentioned. The version of the integer data type is mentioned here, right? So this is going to be called, a version from this, it's a kind of child from the parent, right? A version of this is going to be generated for which the memory will be allocated, and the implementation for this is going to be taken care from this, right? Let us say I have two float variables, okay? 3.14, y equal to 7.86. Now again I am calling, let us say, max function, okay, by passing x comma y. Now what happens? The x data type is float, so a version of float will be generated. It means replacing type with float, another version is going to be created here, right? And that is going to be implemented for this, okay? That is going to be implemented here. So likewise, if you have again character variables being passed to the same, then a character version is going to be generated. Similarly, blah blah blah. So the advantage of having generic subprograms is once defined the operation, okay, you can implement that particular operation for different data types without having to write again. So the advantage of having this, advantage of having this generic subprogram is reusability. One is reusability, which is always there in subprogram, but then it is at a higher level, you can say, right? And the line of code will be reduced, right? Yes or no? The line of code will be reduced. The source code will be reduced. If I have to specify with all different types in char float, I need to write this separately, right? So when I know the operation is same, instead of having writing the function again and again by changing the data type, I can rather have a generic of this kind, which can be rather used for all such data types. Fine. At the time of activation, the version is going to be created dynamically, and the same will be implemented. So the advantage is memory reduction. Okay, memory reduction is also another advantage that you can say, rather, right? Because if you had written the int version, character float, long, double version, then for all such functions the memory must have been created. But now here you are just having a generic subprogram, and when you probably activate it for, let us say, integer, an integer version is going to be created. Only for that memory will be created. And when you are activating it for character, then the character version is going to be created for which the memory will be created. It means in advance you are not getting the memory created for all such versions beforehand, right? So memory is reduced the other way around. And then typing effort of the programmer is reduced. Typing effort of the programmer is reduced. When the typing effort of the programmer is reduced and LOC is reduced, then obviously cost will be reduced, right? Cost of the project is reduced. Getting the point? So these are all the advantages that you find in generic subprograms. Fine. I hope this is clear to all of you. Now coming to design issues for functions, are the side effects allowed in the functions? Um, you know, parameters should always be in mode to reduce the side effect. Basically, side effects in the sense when you see macro functions, you find the side effect, right? Fine, but in nano functions you don't find. In order to eliminate this, side effect, actually, what happened is, uh, in order to eliminate the side effect in the functions, what happened? For example, if you have a function of, let us say, square of a number, fine. Where let us say you have to take some variable, return x into x kind of thing, right? If I have to call this, when I am calling the function square, I need to pass the value to the form parameter. If I am, let us say, passing some expression instead of a value or a variable, like for example I plus plus, I am passing, right? So what should happen? Whether the expression should be evaluated first and then passed, or else the value can be taken directly. Fine. So this kind of things comes into being, which we call it as side effects, and that have to be rather taken care by the language designer. So they are well taken care, of course, in C, C++, Java. What happens is in normal functions, when you have the expressions being passed to the parameters, then they will be evaluated first, right? They will be evaluated first, and then the value will be passed. If they are not evaluated, the issue that you get is, I plus plus in the sense it's a post increment, so value to be used first, then increment. Use and then increment, right? So in that case, if the same is being repeated here, first value, let us say, when I value, let us say 2, so I value is used 2, and then increment, then you got the incremented value here 2, then here 3, that it's not a square of a number, 2 3s are 6, right? So these kind of side effects you probably find. Fine. So but in order to eliminate these kind of side effects, what happened is, programming language like C++ or Java also, you can see, where the expressions will be evaluated first. Expression will be evaluated first, then they will be passed, to the formal, right? They are well taken care, of course, right? Or like in Ada, it was taken care by considering it in the in mode. What type of return values are allowed? Return type, like in C++ also, you are restricted by at return from certain data types. Like you can return, of course, any built-in type values like integer, character, float, long, double, and you can rather return a pointer also. Fine. If you have to return a structure from the function, you can't directly return the structure from the function, but you can return its pointer, I mean the reference, fine, the address. That is possible. Fine. So that way, of course, some modifications were adopted across the different programming languages to ensure that they are they result with less side effects and less difficulties from the user's point of view. Most imperative languages restrict the written types. C initially is an imperative language. They restrict. Of course, they have given us integer, character, float, long, double, but they have restricted its structures, and they have restricted it to arrays. Arrays, if you want to return through pointers, you can do that, right? Of course, alternate solution they have provided by simulating this time, but they have restricted for certain data types, right? C allows any type except array and functions, right? You cannot structure also can be passed the help of point. C++ is like C, but also allows user-defined data types. Ada allows any type. Java, C# do not have functions, but methods can have rather, right? So it is from different language designers' point of view, different kind of approaches going to be followed rather, right? Operator overloading and user-defined overloaded operators, you can say, right? Like in C++, you have seen operator overloading concept. Of course, it is available in other languages like Ada also. Fine. In C++, you may have already implemented. Like for example, plus is the operator to be used for addition operation on all built-in data types, like in char, float, long. But in addition to that, if there is some complex number class, if you have a matrix class or a string class or a vector class, where again you want the same kind of feeling when you're performing the addition over the over these data types, then probably it is not allowed in other programming language. But in C++ and Ada, by having this operator, overloading feature adopted with their programming construct, they are providing us with this facility. So users can avail this facility here, like for example, multiplication of vector type. You can probably have a function like Ada example is given here. In Ada, for example, asterisk, which is being used as a multiplication symbol used for multiplication on built-in types. But then if you are trying to implement it on user-defined types like vector types, we are vector type over here. So if you want to do that, then you are allowed to do that rather, right? So here in a skeleton of the same is being mentioned here. You can see function asterisk within double quotes. A, B are the variables of vector type, and it is returning integer kind. Integer equal to 0 if taken, and for index. This is how we have the for loop in Ada. For index in A, range loop, sum equal to sum plus. You are accumulating the both the vector values, right? A and B. You're multiplying A and B and then accumulating that product, right? So what is that you're doing here? Sum equal to sum plus A into B, right? So the index value of the vector A and the index value of vector B you mentioned here. Fine. So the index value which is going to be ranged between the minimum to maximum rather, right? So which have been defined before itself. So here the vector product which you are going to get is being accumulated into sum in this for loop, and then when you come out of it, you are going to return the same, right? You may have probably seen the operator overloading concept in C++ on probably matrices. I don't know which example your teacher has taken to explain you. Most of the time, people either take complex or matrix class. They can either take vector or string and other kind of classes as well. See here we have taken vector example of Ada language. Rather, you can see now when you are implementing this function, how can you interpret the code in the program is C equal to A into B, you are saying, like very similar to built-in type kind, right? So where A, B, C are of vector type, fine. Generally, this multiplication symbol is a load directly over the built-in types to perform the multiplication operation. But then here you can see this is being a load over AB, where AB are of vector type which are not built-in rather, right? If they are, if it is something else, if the data type is not belonging to built-in, then there must be a function which specifies how that operation should be carried out on that respective user-defined data type, right? This is what the function you have mentioned. So this will be, identified by the Ada compiler to carry out that respective task, right? Anyway, probably in next class, I will take an example of C++ and explain you same again, operator overloading, while operating in a little more detail. This is one of the important questions can be asked in the examination. I hope this is clear to all of you.